All right, many blessings, friends. Welcome to House 633 online service. I'm Pastor Halton, and today I'm being joined by two young lions. So I'm very excited about today. I'm excited about the topic. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves, and then we're going to go into what we're going to be talking today. We're still talking on the family series. We're talking about relationships, introduce yourself.
Hey guys, my name is Henry. We have something prepared for everyone that's single and ready to mingle. So they brought me in because apparently I'm the expert.
Yeah, so God bless you guys. My name is Andy. It's a pleasure having you guys here. We just pray that this topic that we touch, may it bless you guys. May it just order your guys' steps and help you guys in your relationships, whether you're single, whether, and we'll get into it, but it might be a little complicated. But yeah, we just pray that it blesses you guys.
Yeah, so today we're just going to be talking here, and like I said, we're going unscripted. None of this was really prepared. We just had a wonderful moment with the Holy Spirit prior to this, and then we're like, okay, we're going to go ahead and go on live, and we're going to continue talking about the family, because the family is definitely such an important topic, such an important area of our lives, because we all come from a family, or we're all going to form a family. More specifically, I was telling the guys here, I'm like, you know what? Today we're going to go and we're going to have some fun, and we're going to talk about it's complicated. Because it's complicated can mean so many different things to people, and there is a reason why people have a hard time getting in right standing with God is because, for example, me, I'll tell you guys, I've talked to a lot of young people, a lot of people that are dating, a lot of people that are married, and I love it when they come and they tell me, you know what, brother, it's complicated. Because I always tell them, why don't you just come back to God? Why don't you just come back to church? Why don't you just get back in right standing? Like, to me, it's so easy because my life is not complicated. But then they come to me and they tell me, brother, it's complicated. I wish it was that easy. I wish I could just walk away from where I'm at and be able to just go back to where I was. But because of some decisions, or because the person that I'm currently dating, it now becomes complicated for me to come back to God and be in right standing with Him. So I decided to bring these two young lions, these two young guys that are out there in the dating scene. We got one that is actually single. We got somebody that is single, and with somebody that is taken. So, just in case somebody was going to send a message saying, who are these guys?
Slide in the DM.
they can't, or at least Andy can, but I don't think he really wants to go out there and date yet.
Yeah, no, I'm good right now, guys, but add yourself to the list.
I'll let you know when I'm ready.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
So he's in that mode. So, I just wanted to start with you guys and just kind of say, like, okay, what does it mean when it says it's complicated?
Well, I can say, people supposedly want it to mean. It's just like there's nothing defined yet between me and the person I'm seeing. So it's complicated because I really don't know, or we haven't had that conversation that defines what we are. That's what I would say that people mean when they say that. Though in reality, I think it has more to do with that same person. It's complicated because in reality, there's something wrong with me.
Right. I don't know what I want.
I don't know what I want, yeah. But.
Right. No, that's good. I think today's society, that's such a huge problem because relationships, they're not defined anymore. Mm-hmm. It's just like we're friends and we like to hang out.
With the flow.
Right, like we hang out, but we don't want commitment yet. Right. So we're just going to keep hanging out, if it turns into that new quote-unquote friends with benefits, then cool. Even better, because now we get the benefits of a relationship and all the physical aspects of it, but there's no commitment there. And I think in today's society, that's the big problem, is just lack of commitment. Like Henry said, people don't know what they want. So they go into relationships where it's just like, he doesn't know, I don't know. So it's complicated, but we're together, but we're really not. Yeah.
And that is very interesting. Like I said, to me, it is very strange because I've been happily married for the last 20 years. But I've been hearing this word, from so many different people. It's complicated. It is not as easy as it looks. I really want to do good. But in the condition that I find myself in the situation, in the relationship, I just don't know what good looks like anymore. Right. So, you know what, and sometimes, it might sound weird. It says that it is easier to be in it than to abandon it. Right. So, I don't know. I'm going to tell you guys a story, and I guess that this will kind of like help set up the conversation, and you guys kind of tell me what you guys feel and think about it. I went to the dealership today. So I didn't go to the dealership with an intention to buy a car. I just went to look at a car because I wanted to make I wanted to trade a car that, that I have. I purchased this car about a year ago. I purchased it for about $20,000. So I'm like, okay, cool. You know what? We're bored of the car. We want to get a new car. So I went to the dealership to shop around for a new car. I'm like, maybe I can get a new vehicle. So the guys tell me, hey, let's do paperwork. Let's go see where your credit score is at. Let's go see if you owe on the car. And I'm like, how can I owe on this car that I just got a year ago? The car should hold its value. But for the people that are out there, let me tell you, the car is the worst investment that you can do. It loses its value.
It's a liability.
Yes, it's a liability. So it loses value the moment you take off. And some relationships are like that. They lose value the moment that you get in them. So just hang on tight to what I'm trying to say. So we're in the dealership. We're doing paperwork. They're looking at the car that I have. My car looks in great condition. It's not crashed. It's still fairly new. Got it for $20,000. I'm only a year into the payments. So I'm like, yeah, I only owe like $18,000 out of the car, so the car should be worth something. So when I go and they give me the paperwork back, they tell me, hey, there is a problem. The car is only worth $10,000. It lost half of its value within a year. And if you want to get into a new car, you want to trade this car in, we can do it. There's not a problem. You can get into this new model, but we have to add the $10,000 deficit to the new model, and so your payment is going to be higher. And I was looking at the paperwork, and it says it doesn't make any sense. Why would anybody trade in this car to add a $10,000 debt to a $20,000 car that's going to make it worth $30,000 just to get rid of this one? So I found myself in a moment in time where I say it's complicated. I don't want this car. I want to trade it for a better car.
But I have to keep it.
But I have to keep it.
That's good.
And I don't know if there's a lot of people out there that find themselves in that situation where it looked good at the beginning. It looked good, like, man, I love how it drives. I love how it feels. It can take me to point A to point B. But now I'm ready for the next one because this one doesn't meet my needs anymore. But now there's a deficit. Now, in order for me to get into this new model, I'm going to have to bring this baggage into the new one,
right.
And it doesn't make sense. The buyer says it doesn't make sense to be with you.
Right.
You might as well keep what you have. It just doesn't make sense. So we have a lot of people that are in a relationship that is complicated, that they understand that they don't want it anymore. They understand that they don't want to be part of it anymore, but they simply can't abandon it. And if you tell people, hey, why don't you just come back to God? Why don't you just come back to the church? Why don't you just come back, to being single? And they always say this word is complicated, brother. And I'm like, what do you mean it's complicated? Yeah, because now I'm pregnant.
Right.
It's complicated because now we have kids. It's complicated because, I was with my boyfriend, but then I met this other guy, and now I'm in a three-way relationship between my boyfriend and now the guy that I like.
Baby daddy.
Yeah, baby daddy. Now it's complicated. Right. How do I go back to normal? So like I said, for me, it's a funny topic. Not funny because a lot of people are suffering from it, but simply because I've been out of the dating scene for like 20 years. I've been happily married, and I haven't had none of these issues. But this generation,
right.
My goodness, this generation lives in complication. So what can you guys say to me about what I'm saying?
You want to start?
Well, the only thing I can say is that this generation, and we can see it in every aspect of society in which it's involved in, it's very in touch with their feelings.
Ooh.
So they move on their feelings. And, I don't want to talk about other subjects, but specifically on this, it's like if a guy comes, or even with guys, if a girl comes and makes you feel a certain way, then originally or at the beginning, you're going to start making moves according to how you're feeling. But when that ends and you're able to see what actually is going on in the relationship, is when they're like, okay, I don't want this anymore, And then they come and start talking to other people that are making them feel what the other person was making them feel at the beginning, and now that's where they encounter themselves in that awkward situation.
It's complicated.
It's complicated.
Because I love this one, but this one makes me feel good.
Right.
Right. All right. let me try to circulate my thoughts here. But part of the problem there is what happens is in relationships, because we've had lack of models. What you said so clearly is you have all this baggage that you're trying to leave, but you can't bring it into something new.
Right.
But how that baggage is formed, and the only thing that comes to mind right now, what Dr. Jerome Glenn calls as soul ties.
Yeah.
You know, and he explains this so perfect because this isn't even just a relationship between a boy and a girl. It can be between friendships, any type of relationship that you have. We have to be aware of how we create these soul ties with people, but especially in the dating scene. Because what soul ties are is basically just questions that are asked in relationships that now you create literally that, a soul tie. You create a connection that the deeper it goes, the more dangerous it goes if it's not under order or under authority. So what happens is, let's say a boyfriend and a girlfriend form into a relationship where they're just dating, where technically it's supposed to be a courtship. They're just supposed to be getting to know each other. All they are is friends. But now what happens is they start expanding the physical limits. They start kissing, making out. Some take it as far as sex. So now you form these physical soul ties that, like you said, once your mind gets out of that and you start realizing, you're like, oh shoot, like I don't want to be here anymore, but you form these physical soul ties that you can't leave anymore. Then there's like the mental and just the relationship soul ties, where you start asking each other all these deep questions about family, and you start forming these futures together, where you want to live, where you want to get married. You already named your kids, and you're forming all these. It's true, but you're forming all these soul. No, yes, partly by experience, but it's now that you say that, it's true. Like, you're in a point in a relationship where you don't know if you're gonna get married, you don't know if you want to get married, but you're planning as if you're already married. You do things as if you're married, and then you come to a realization like, oh shoot, like this isn't the one for me. But we're already doing all these things that we should have never done in the first place. So now it's hard to leave that because you're technically tied down here already.
And it all goes back to the fact that this generation is not able to identify who they need to be with to begin with. Because we wouldn't put ourselves in that situation if we knew from the beginning how to identify the person that we need to be with.
So going into that, I'm having a great time just listening to you guys. Going back to this, I think it'll go back to a problem of singleness, right? We've talked about singleness a lot. Singleness is the foundation of basically everything, of any relationship, whether it's just a friendship relationship or whether it's a boyfriend or girlfriend, a fiance, a marriage, a family. You need to be able to be single. So in order for us to be able to come and address the situation of it's complicated, we first need to be able to come and address what got us into that complicated relationship to begin with. So we got there simply because we did not understand what singleness is, or what it is, what it means to be single. So when we talk about singleness or being single, we always our concept is always about not being with somebody, or always has to do with us not dating somebody. So we say we're single, yet we're not single. We're actually broken. And we're actually not operating at that level. So singleness, for all of us that are watching, is the concept of being separate, being unique, and being whole. So in order for you to be single, you have to first be able to know what you were separated to do, or what your assignment is, what your purpose is. Those are the questions that you don't ask. So the reason people get into complicated relationships is because the first thing that they say is, man, you look good. Right. You're fine. Oh, you're cute. Do you have a Instagram? Do you have a Snapchat? Do you have TikTok? We ask the wrong question. Right. We ask them, what is it that you guys ask each other that get yourselves into this complicated situation instead of asking the right question?
I think something that people ask and they want to find out when they start talking to someone is what they have in common. Mm-hmm. When in reality, what God wants for you, or who God wants you to date, is not a person with who you have a lot in common. It's a person with whom you have a lot in purpose.
Yes.
So here we are trying to figure out things in our relationship based on what she likes, what he likes. When in reality, if you're able to know, or if you know your purpose, you'll be able to identify the person that you need to be with according to the purpose that you have.
That is so good. And just adding on to that, that's found in singleness, which is the first thing, being separate. like you said, people aren't separate. They don't know what they've been set apart for. They don't know their purpose. They don't know what their assignment on here is. So they just keep living life without knowing that.
Right.
The second one is being unique. People don't know their characteristics, their gifts, their talents, what makes them them. So therefore, they try to conform to whatever the societal standard is.
Right.
So whatever is in now, like they try to do that, but that's counterproductive to what makes you a unique. And the last one is whole. Being whole is just being so complete in yourself and complete in God that you don't need anybody else. So just with those three basic things, like Henry Gege was saying, people don't know these things in themselves. So therefore they get in these complicated relationships trying to find all these things. And like he said, people try to find commonality where we know commonality won't last in your relationship. Love won't last in your relationship either. Love can only take you so far, and that's why what you said was so good. We need to form relationships based on purpose, based on where we're going. And people don't know where they're going, they don't know their purpose, so that's why relationships are where they're at.
So let's talk a little bit about singleness, and let's talk a little bit about that before we get into a hot topic here. But I want to be able to what you were saying, to be single means to be separate, right? And you're talking about purpose. Separation means assignment, means purpose. So the first thing that any individual, whether they're a male or female, they first need to understand what their purpose is, what their assignment is. They need to know what they were separated for, right? If they don't understand that and they walk into these relationships, then they're going to be led astray. They're going to be led in a different direction, and that's where heartbreak comes in. That's where complication comes in. That's where they feel now stuck, that they can't abandon it. I love him, but I know he's not the right person, but I love him. Right. And I can't leave him. I just want to stay with him. You were saying it's about also the ear, women fall in love through what they hear. So you have this guy that comes and starts sweet talking to them, and then she starts saying to him, oh, you're pretty, oh, you're not like the other girls, you're special.
Guys are good at that.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know, they're lying.
Yes, every guy says the same thing. Because when we want to win the heart over, when we want to win the girl over, we're not going to win them over by telling them that we don't have a clue who we are, and we don't have a clue where they're going either. Right. So we win them over by telling them how special they are. We come and just generalize it. Right. It doesn't only apply to you, it applies to every other girl. They're all special. So, but I'll just tell you something that generally fits every girl. You're special. So, but you think that he's telling you that you're special. No, every girl's special. But he's just throwing a general topic out there. So I want to be able to bring a little something just to poke fun at this whole situation. Because like I said, the people that are in a complicated relationship, we want to help you guys out. We want to, we know that you don't want to be there, that you feel stuck, and that you don't know how to be able to escape or how to be able to get everything back into the right order. So when something is complicated, it's like a knot. Everything's twisted. It's not so easy to be able to abandon it, not so easy to be able to get out of it. And like I said, just like my story with the car, sometimes it's just easier to stay in it than to walk away from it. But it's not the right thing. So when we're talking about singleness, we're talking about assignment, we're talking about purpose and all this stuff, I want to be able to go back to the Bible and be able to see, the life of Adam, for example. When Adam was created, he was created, one, to be able to live in the presence of God, to know the Word of God, to understand His work or His job, to be able to be protected. But I want to touch one area, and it said that God brought all the animals to Adam. Check this out. So God brought all the animals to Adam so that Adam can name every single one of those animals. Right. Now the animals were created out of the earth, out of the dust, the same way that the man was created. What made an animal different from Adam was that Adam had the spirit of the man inside of the dirt body, which made him a living being. But the animals didn't have the spirit of man in them. They were just living beings. It was just animals. So God wanted to see first if Adam understood who he was. If Adam understood his worth, if Adam understood his identity, so he says, I'm going to bring to you all of these animals because they have the same composition. When you have the same composition, it means that it meets the requirements of satisfaction. Right. Meaning, in this case, in this conversation, we're going to talk about sexual needs. We're going to talk about fixing the loneliness problem, because singleness is not a problem. Loneliness is. Right. People confuse singleness with loneliness. They feel lonely so they want to have somebody to be there with them. But loneliness is the real disease, not singleness. So God brings the animals, he presents them to Adam, and then Adam comes, he names them, and then he says that he noticed something. He said that he noticed that there wasn't somebody that was comparable to him. He realized that these animals did not have the same quality in them that was in him. They didn't have the same spirit. But God tested his identity with them to see if he would choose an animal as his partner. To see if he would rather be with an animal than to be alone. So a lot of women and a lot of men both, they would rather be with an animal than be by themselves, than be alone, because they don't understand their identity. So the singleness comes to correct the identity process, so that when we see an animal approaching us, we don't confuse ourselves with it, and we don't get ourselves into this complicated relationship simply because we didn't understand our own identity.
That's good. Just to add to that same train of thought, talking about purpose, the reason purpose is so important in a relationship, because again, going back to Adam and Eve, going back to how God functioned or put the function into both beings, the male and the female, we need to understand what both functions were made for, because purpose plays into both. Because the male, they were made to function as leaders. They were made to have the purpose. They were meant to have made the vision. They were designed to lead. You know, we read in what's that chapter in Corinthians? That is it in Corinthians?
I believe the marriages, right?
That the marriage, that the man is supposed to provide leadership. The woman is supposed to be made to vote. So what happens is the male's supposed to lead, and the women, in their function, in their original way designed, they're supposed to help. They're helpers. So what happens is, if you have no purpose, well, guess what? You, as the girl, as the helper, you're not going to have anything to help with. And that's where frustration comes. Because in the beginning, like we've been saying, in the beginning of a relationship, it's all nice. It's all, what do they call it? The honeymoon stage. Some people last a long time in the honeymoon stage until the hard questions are asked. So people fall into this, I love you, you love me, you're kind to me, you treat me right. But then we come into these questions. Hey, do you know your purpose? Where are you taking me? As a girl, you should be asking your boyfriend or whoever it is you're with, where are you taking me? Where are you taking yourself? Are you capable of leading me? Am I capable of helping you in your purpose? And these are questions that just aren't asked anymore. And that's why you form these complicated relationships where there's no purpose.
Yeah, and even without asking these questions, you should be able to identify things in a man that a man should have before he even presents himself to you. You know, but like you were saying, God gave him work. He gave him. He told him to cultivate. He gave him assignments, right? So if the man does not have any of these qualities, it's an automatic. It should be an automatic no, right? But we have people that, because they're unable to identify those things within themselves, they're obviously unable to identify it in other people. So they enter the relationships thinking that as they grow, they will get to know the person and see beyond those things. Well, yeah, I know that he's a jerk, but once you get to know him, he's actually really nice. But in reality, he's a jerk. That's just how he is.
And then to add to what you were saying in the beginning, or right now actually, God gave Adam that test, again, to see how he would identify, if he would identify with the animals. But then what happens is he said no, like he didn't find anybody, what's that, one word?
Comparable.
Yeah, he didn't find anybody comparable to him. He didn't find anybody that had his resemblance, that had the same image, the same likeness that he had in God. So God now put him in a deep sleep, takes a rib from him, and forms Eve. Now what God does is the same thing that he did with the animals. He simply presented Eve to Adam. So Adam now had to identify, and what he says is this woman is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. So a lot of times in relationships that get complicated, people fall only on flesh living my flesh. They only look at what they can satisfy the physical needs, if they look good, if they work out, or whatever it is that you prefer in a physical relationship. But the most important part is the bone of my bone.
So the women always go after the flesh and the men go after the flesh, and that's why they get into these it's complicated relationships.
Oh yeah, they both go after the fleshly things.
Well, but if you think about it, if Adam didn't, or God didn't present Adam to Eve until he was able to disregard all the animals.
Right.
So if you keep dating the animals that you
Right.
encounter, God will never present the person that's meant for you.
Exactly. Yeah, but what I was getting at is that we need to now look at the spiritual aspect of stuff and ask, hey, can my spouse, can my boyfriend, can my girlfriend not only meet my physical needs, but also my spiritual needs? Because that's, in essence, what's the most important thing. Because bone is, like you've said, that's the bone marrow. It's what gives you life. Flesh can only give you temporary satisfaction. And that's another problem with today's generation. We fall into this instant gratification where we just think about the now. We think about the tomorrow, and we don't think about the delayed gratification, what's to come. And that's another problem in relationships.
I just want to ask a question. Like I said, I'm going to let you guys lead it because you guys are doing a great job. But I'm just going to throw a wrench up here, and I might make it more complicated than it should be.
It's complicated.
But it's complicated, right? What happens, and this is what we see in the churches today. I hear women saying that they can't find a good man in the church. And then we hear men saying, I can't find a good woman within the church.
Right.
And they go after these wild women. These women that bring out, this desire in them. But then they look at the sisters in the church and there's no desire for the sisters in the church.
Yeah.
So I think that part of this whole is complicated thing is that we can't find within the church either something that we want, either because we can't identify it because we don't know who we are, or are the girls or the guys inside the church a little bit too religious that they don't allow God to form them so that they can become the thing that is going to be needed for this other person, so this other person has to not go outside and get stuck in a relationship that's going to be totally complicated.
Well, I think it's a little bit of everything, but if we go to technical terms, it goes back to the men.
Yeah.
Because like we've talked, my perfect woman does not exist. I have to create it. I have to cultivate it. So if I say that there's no one at church that can meet my expectations, it's because I'm not capable right now to create or cultivate that person into meeting my expectations. So it goes back to the man.
That's good.
Okay, where to add, because that was a packed question. But
I'm just gonna say, maybe you answer it too, because I'm like, as you guys are speaking, more stuff come to my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why is it that you're not able to cultivate or be able to create this woman? Is it because the way that she dresses? Is it the way that she acts?
Yeah.
Is it the way that she portrays herself? What is it about you that you look at this woman and you said, I'm not ready to cultivate this one, but you have no problem trying to cultivate something else outside the church?
Okay. What I'll add is this. So growing up in a religious environment, you can sometimes be led the wrong way.
Okay.
And what I mean in relationships is growing up in church, growing up again in that religious system, we were taught like, hey, you don't hold a girl's hand, you don't look at her, like you don't. Because we're trying to portray the aspect of holiness. Yeah, so when you're in a relationship, you don't do anything physical, like you don't hug her, like you stay away. And it's because I'm trying to like circulate it in my mind. But what happens is this: you get into a relationship and you don't address things that need to be addressed. So for example, like that physical parts of a relationship have to happen, but they should be under authority. And again, relationships have to be under authority. That's a topic for another day. Yeah. But your relationship should be overseen by either your spiritual father, your parents. There has to be some sort of authority overseeing your relationship so that they can guide you.
No, I was just going to say, because if I'm not mistaken, he was saying, because you're already saying, like, if you're already in a relationship with someone from church, but I think he was saying, how come you're not able to identify that women at church or that that girl at church.
Yeah, because
and then you go look
like
outside.
I said, let's just talk real, and because this is something that is really happening. There are plenty of women in church,
Right.
and there are plenty of men in church. But why do we find women from church looking for men outside of the church, and men from the church looking for women outside of the church?
Well, if you want to be real, I think it's just people want to be free with their own desires, and they feel like they can't do it with people at church.
So they don't want to be judged.
They don't want to be judged.
So that's what you're saying. You don't want to be
They want to
judged.
get freaky outside, and no one at church is gonna know.
Like nobody outside is going to find it abnormal that you find yourself sexually attracted to them.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's where I was getting at. Like these things are so frowned upon at church that we've been taught like, hey, we need to have this holy face where we don't like take out our personalities, like, oh, we can't be too funny. If we like to joke around, we have to turn that down because it can be frowned upon.
It's
I
like
was
the
just
church.
gonna say-
It's like the church expects you to get together to pray.
Right.
Right,
And I was
exactly,
just
yeah.
gonna say we're not, and I just want to clarify, we're not saying that it's okay for you to be having sex with people at church.
Right.
Or
It is not
anywhere.
okay.
What
We
we're
do not
saying is
condone
that-
it.
Yeah, but what we're saying is that nobody talks about it.
Right.
Nobody talks about it. You know, so that's the problem, that we think that because nobody talks about it, then I can't say anything because or of what I'm feeling, so I'd rather go outside.
Right.
And I know that someone will welcome the way that I'm feeling right now.
And not frown upon it.
Exactly.
At the same time, we have all of these guys that don't know nothing about God coming into the church and convincing the girls in the church, saying, "Hey, you know what? The girls out there give it to me. Why aren't you giving it to me?
Right.
You know, it's like, you know, you like me, right?" So these guys that don't nothing about God come into the church and now convince these girls in the church to have sex with them.
Right.
And it goes back to what we've talked over and over, where men give love to receive sex, and women
Yes.
give sex to receive love, and then the cycle continues.
Yeah, and
You know, and it's a very a hot topic within the church, and it's a big problem. Why? Because the church stays silent about it, and the church doesn't like to talk about it. It's happening. Look, man, I'm not going to mention the names, and I'm not going to throw nobody under the bus, and I'm not going to mention the name of the ministry. But I've been in different ministries, and you know, when I was growing up during the ministry, I knew of people that would leave children's ministry to go hook up with their girlfriend, have sex, and then they will come back to children's ministry. The parent will pick them up afterward like nothing happened. While their parents were in service worshiping God, their children were having sex, hooking up during service.
Right.
Why? Because nobody speaks about it.
Yeah.
And they get into these complicated relationships within church. And then you know, parents go back home and they're like, why is my child frustrated? Why is my baby girl, you know, going through this emotional trauma? Because you're not even aware of what she just did in church.
Right.
With this guy that just came to church simply because he wanted to see her, and church was the only way that he can see her under disguise, meaning that nobody was going to even suspect that that's what they were doing.
It's something, you know, kids are going to learn about sex. They're going to learn about all these things, either from you as a parent or from school, from their friends. So
Or by doing it.
or by doing it.
Right.
So honestly, I'm not a parent, but I would say it when I'm a parent, I'd rather they learn it from me, right? From a kingdom perspective rather than their friends.
Yeah, and then that's what I was gonna go to, because on top of the church not addressing it, they don't speak about it. But the church hasn't created an environment where relationships can be cultivated in a healthy way. There's no like quote unquote singles event. There's no model where it's like, hey, you can date, you can get to know each other in a healthy way without forming these soul ties, without having to have sex with people. And again, like you said, that also falls on the parents. Parents haven't created an environment where their children feel safe to say, hey, like, how do I date? What the heck is dating? Like, how are relationships supposed to look like? Like, we grew up not knowing that. When we grow up just trying to be like these holy kids, but
Well, not being
I was going to say something, and like I said, I'm going to say it anyway because because it's true. You have all these boys in including men and boys, I would say, within church, that they come and they have all. Where does masturbation come from? And where does pornography come from? It comes because of all these desires that they experience when they come in contact with a female counterpart, and that they don't know how to control it. So, and instead of them going and this is a mindset because people have explained it to me. Instead of me going and having sex with her, I'd rather just go watch porn. Instead of me having sex with her and fornicating and committing a sin, I'd rather just masturbate.
And then it's like,
and they think that by doing that is a lesser sin.
Right.
But it's the same thing.
yeah.
It creates a whole different other pattern.
It creates those kind of sins that it's hidden, and those are the worst ones, because those are the ones you never talk about. Those are the ones that nobody will probably find out. So those are the ones that are the hardest to let go of after.
And this is the thing, guys. And this is like I said, it's crazy. We're just being raw. We're like, if you're offended, just turn us off. Click out. But honestly, this is the problem. We talk about masturbation when it comes to the male. But right now, there's also masturbation with the females. There are so many girls that are experiencing, and they get taught in the outside world, hey, you know what? You need to be able to practice this even before you get into your marriage, because this is normal. This is okay. Why? Because they can't go to the parent. They can't go to the pastor. They can't go to the leaders. There is no trust. Why? Because if you start talking to a leader about these needs, this leader might take advantage of your vulnerability and might try to abuse it or just set it up so that he can do it.
That's sad.
But it's true, but it's happening.
Yeah, and then again, these are topics that the church hasn't addressed. So since we're on the topic, we need to address it. Masturbation is such a dangerous sin because, like Henry said, it's a sin that nobody knows. But not just that,
it's called iniquity, no?
It's iniquity because it's a sin that is hidden, that nobody knows about, but it's hidden and it doesn't allow you to come close to God. So when we're talking about it's complicated, it doesn't only affect relationships. It affects even if you're single, not dating anybody. Yes. It's complicated for me to come back to God. It's complicated for me to feel God. It's complicated for me to serve in the church. Why? Because I'm going through all of these emotional things in my life. I just can't seem to stop masturbating. I can't seem to stop watching porn. I can't seem to be able to come in contact with a female or a male without me having a desire.
And in the New Testament, I don't remember exactly where, it talks about all the sins. And it says that the only sin that it's against your own body, that all of them are for the outside, but the only one that's against your own body is sexual immorality.
Yes. Sexual immorality. And sexual immorality is not just fornication. Sexual immorality is when we're talking about masturbation, we're talking about pornography, we're talking about experimentation. Usually when a child gets within the ages of 13 to 18 is that age where they experiment. This is the time where homosexuality kicks in, lesbianism kicks in. They're experimenting because they don't know what to do with all the hormones. They don't know what to do with all the emotions. And the parents in the church are just not ready to talk to them about it.
They know nothing about it. That's what you find out about many kids that come out as homosexuals when they're like 21, and it's like their parents are just finding out, and it's because, or you could think, what if the parents would have known right away when the guy was 13, 14? Might have been different because all they needed was guidance.
The thing is that when you're crossing the ages of 13 to 18, that's where all the confusion kicks in. That's where all these hormones and all these things are going on in your mind and your body. For the female, they're developing, their breasts are coming out, their period is kicking in, pubic hair is coming out, and you don't know what to do with it. I can't talk to my mom about this. Right. I can't talk to them about my period coming in because it's a sin. I can't tell them about my knees. It's a sin. So now people come and they talk about these things with the wrong people. Yes. So they start telling the people that they trust. So now there's this other kid that's 13 years old, and he's like, hey, my period just came. He's telling somebody that he shouldn't have told. He's telling him, hey, I'm developing, and he's telling somebody that he shouldn't have told. And this other person, let me see if it's true, because I'm also going through these changes, and it's weird. Look at mine, look at yours. Everybody's discovering, So, and the church is really not ready to kind of like, how do we come and we save our youth, and how we come and we save them so that they don't get into this complicated situation where they no longer feel God.
Right, yeah, because then the dangerous part about that is because the church, like I said, hasn't created that environment where we can talk about it and just guide the teenagers and the young adults in that healthy way. But now what we're seeing is that the school systems, whether we like it or not, they're going to start guiding the kids or the children And the dangerous part is that these kids now, like you said, if they go to the school and they ask, hey, like I'm feeling this, say, what do I do? Well, now guess what? There's homosexuality now, transgenderism, and all these things that are now going to be taught to kids in their most vital years that they need guidance from either parents or from the church.
Yep. And another topic that I'm just going to throw out there because it has to be thrown out there is the majority of sexual abuse happens during this period. And people never find out about sexual abuse until people are coming to, when they're getting ministrated 10 years later. Like, so when did they touch you? Oh, when I was 7, when I was 5, when I was 4, when I was 10. But why are you telling me now that you're 21? Because now I feel safe enough to say it. So all of these things that make the relationship to come to God complicated, it starts at an early age. So we need to be able to come here and have this conversation and be able to bring people back to their singleness so that they can understand, their assignment, understand what their gifts are, so that they can be whole. Because being whole is the most complicated thing there is. Being whole means that you're not broken. It means that you're complete in yourself. And how many people can actually say, I'm whole? Nobody. Why? Because, man, somebody messed me up when I was 5. I went to church and my church leader touched me. I went to church and the guy that was supposed to be watching over me, I lost my virginity with them. There's like so many things, that I've heard along the line. Why? Simply because we refuse to touch it. Right. Simply because we refuse to be able to come here and say, hey, I know it's complicated, but we need to talk about it because we need to be able to bring a correction. And we were talking about when the light of God hits a place, when the light of God hits darkness, it doesn't hit the darkness because it wants to shame you. We don't want to shame anybody. We want to be able to correct it so that you can be able to come back to God and serve God the way that God wants to be served. Right. There's a bunch of broken people that love God, but they can't serve God. So we have to be able to be intentional in creating whole people so that they can come and be able to become one with Christ and be able to serve God.
Yes, and that's honestly the problem with being in those complicated relationships, and even relationships in general before you're ready, is that they take away time from your singleness. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to develop your singleness if you're in a relationship. It's just really hard because now you both have to be on the same page. You both have to just be focused on what you want to do. So if you're single without any relationship, without anybody else, you have the time to focus on your image, focus on your likeness, focus on God, focus on your uniqueness, focus on all these things and being a whole. But if you're in a relationship, it's really hard to do that with somebody else next to you. So now what happens, especially in relationships where it's complicated, you spend all these years with another person, essentially wasting all this time trying to not only fix yourself, but they're fixing themselves. You're both trying to get to somewhere. If you would have just separated, you worked on yourself, and if he decided to work on himself, cool. If he didn't, at least you worked on yourself, you got prepared. So now when God presents you with your boyfriend or girlfriend, now you're ready. But what happens is with relationships is they try to do singleness with somebody else, and that's really hard. Trust me, it's really hard.
Yeah, and for people, I know someone out there is going to say, well, I only hit him up when I'm horny, when I want to have sex. I'm doing my own. No, for real. Oh, yeah. I'm doing my own thing the entire week, and then at midnight on a Friday, I'll hit him up, or I'll hit whatever. It's still bad. It's still not singleness. Just because you think that you're working on yourself, that goes back to everything else you've mentioned about soul ties. It's just detrimental to your own spiritual health, to your relationship with God,
with everything. Because it's like you were saying, I see people all the time saying we're getting married, right? We're happy, we're getting engaged, we're getting married, we're doing this thing, but none of them are single,
right?
But they're preparing for marriage. They're preparing for a family. They're preparing to buy a house. They're preparing to do all these things, but they're still not single. They have no clue what they're supposed to be doing for God. They have no clue what their gifts or their talents are. And they're battling with all these insecurities, and they're bringing this into this new structure of the marriage. So how can you fix singleness if you're not even paying attention to it?
Right, exactly.
And it needs to be addressed. You know, we're giving it a lot of importance because, like you mentioned in previous sermons, a lot of divorce is going on inside the church. So until this is addressed before it gets to that point, because once you're married, you're gonna have to stick through it. There's no going back. But right now, if you're dating someone and you're not married, there's still time to say, hey, like I need to snap back or snap out of it and then just let go.
Right, and then to add to that, I mean, I'll share a little bit of my personal experience. But what happened is I was in a relationship where it was quote unquote, it was a really good relationship. I mean, we didn't fight, we hung out all the time, we were happy, like we had a good relationship. But then singleness hits us in the face, and I'm like, shoot, I'm not separate, I'm not unique, I'm not whole, I'm not ready for all these things, I don't know my purpose, like I'm not single. So I got that revelation where I'm like, shoot, like I need to work on all these things, but I'm in a relationship. So I had to make that tough choice where we broke things off because I realized that we both needed to work on our singleness. And that's what I think is so hard now, because as guys, I think guys and girls both alike realize that something's wrong, realize that they need to fix stuff, realize that they need to just get on the right track, but nobody wants to make that choice.
I'm going to touch a little bit into what you're saying, because it is very crucial. Why? Because churches are very focused on marriages, for example. They do marriage seminars, marriage getaways, and it's great. Yeah, marriages need a lot of attention. They do. But they don't invest in the singles and the people that are not married and the people that are not dating and the people that are just there trying to discover. As a matter of fact, sometimes they make them feel like there's something wrong with them.
Right.
Why aren't you dating somebody? You're 25 and you're not dating somebody? Right. You're 25 and you're not married yet? This person is not ready or even qualified to be married yet. We're pressuring them to get into a relationship that they don't even qualify for. So, we have to be able to come back and just speak to the people that are not too far in yet into a relationship, that if they can be truly honest to themselves and say, hey, you know what? I'm not single.
Right.
I don't know what my assignment is. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing here. I don't even know why I'm still with my parents. I don't even know why I'm doing it. I don't know.
Right.
So if you don't even know that, what makes you know, what makes you feel so sure that you're with the right person? Right. And I'll tell you what people say. They're not even sure. They say, I feel. I feel. Your feelings are your worst enemy. Right. Your feelings can make you feel like you're worthless, even though you're the most valuable thing in the world. Right. So feelings are never to be trusted. Right. And another thing that I see within the Christian or the church, I would say, and I'm talking about like your experience, is like, there are churches that create these marriage counseling or premarital classes, and now people feel that because they went through these marriage classes, now they have to get married. Right. And the answer is no, you don't. You might have gone through all 20 sessions or whatever, how many sessions you've gone, but if in the middle of these sessions you discovered, hey, you know what? There are all these red flags. Right. Like this guy doesn't love God. This guy doesn't pray. This guy doesn't read. This guy doesn't do none of these things. But he went through the courses with me because he really wants to have sex with me. This is the time that you discover those red flags and step away from the relationship. Yes. You're not taking them so that you can be qualified for marriage. You're taking them so that you can see all these red flags and say, hey, do I want this woman raising my child? This woman is crazy. I don't want her nowhere near my children. But man, she looks good, so I'm going to have sex with her anyway. What is it? Singleness allows you to see all those things.
And one of the questions that I ask people, or my guy friends, when the ones that have gotten married or will get married, is, so how do you know you're ready, or how do you know it's time to get married? And what the answer that I usually get is always, well, you get to an age when, and then they continue. So that's another thing that people always say there's an age for marriage, when in reality, you could be 30, 32 and not be ready for marriage. And that's something that, especially, women, I would say, because of, the ability to have kids and all that, they feel like, I'm already 27, I'm already 28. So well, I'm with this one, so I'm just gonna marry this one. So,
Or even worse, they come in, they say, well, I already had sex with this one, this guy took my virginity, I'm just gonna stay with him. And they already know that that's not the guy, but they already created that soul tie, they already created that emotional tie with the person. So even though they know he's the wrong person, it's complicated. I already slept with him and I don't want to sleep with somebody else, so I'm just gonna stay with him. So I'm like, there are like so many different scenarios, that cause people to enter these complicated situations that does not allow them to come back to God and be able to serve the kingdom. And that's the whole thing. Now you have a bunch of people that are going to spend now the next 30 to 40 years in the desert trying to fix themselves and trying to fix their children, trying to fix their marriage, and they're never going to be able to be fruitful in the things of the kingdom simply because they're just not mentally, physically, or emotionally ready to enter any of these things, simply because they didn't get out of it's complicated situation.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, and if you want to be in right standing with God, you will have to either you go through with marriage and you get married and you'll have to do it for the next 15, 20 years with your partner, or you step back and take the next year or two to figure out who you are, to figure out singleness for yourself, and then you set your entire life.
Yeah, and then what all led to that, and kind of again going back to my personal experience, again, we're trying to fix situations that aren't in marriage yet.
Right.
You still have an out, and not a challenge or dare, but yeah, this is like a challenge to any couple that thinks they're strong. Take 6 months of complete separateness off, work on your singleness, and if you both advance in singleness, and if you both come out of that testing on the same page, and you do realize, hey, you know what your purpose, I'm ready to help you out, hey, we both know our uniqueness, we're both whole in God, because now it's a decision that you make. If you're not whole, then it's like a necessity. Oh, I need to be with you because I'm not whole. But now once you're whole, you have a decision.
Right.
Hey, if after those, I'm telling you guys, take 6 months off of your relationship, work on your singleness, and if after that you guys both still want to be together, then
I'm just going to add to what you're saying, because like I said, every relationship needs to be under authority.
Yes.
Any relationship that it's outside of authority is not a relationship at all. That is already, I'm in a complicated relationship.
Right.
Because anybody that calls me their spiritual authority or calls me a covering, if they're dating and I see something weird, I always tell them, you need to separate. Yes. I need you guys to stop dating. I don't want you to text him. I don't want you to call him. I don't want you to do nothing. And if he was the guy or the girl that was meant for you, then after 6 months, they'll still be there waiting for you. But I'll be honest with you, my experience has been that within 3 months, they're dating somebody else.
Yes.
Within 3 months, they're already hooking up with somebody else. You couldn't even wait 6 months for the other person. And that is the reason why I tell them, don't talk to them. Don't text them. Just stay away from them. Why? Because this will reveal to them if they're truly an honorable person, truly a person that loves order, truly a person that respects authority. Right. And if you were meant for them, then you'll be there after 6 months. Right. But a person that can't wait for you 6 months, why would you even want to be with them? A person that doesn't respect your authority, and in the case of women is their father, why would you want to be with them? A man that doesn't care about what a father thinks is a problem. You can't be dating somebody that doesn't like your mother or doesn't like your father. It creates a problem. And women say, well, I am free to love anyone that I want. I'm like, yes, you are, but you're headed for destruction and you're headed for failure. You can't have somebody that can't stand your authority. Right. It's impossible.
Because all they're going to teach you is to undermine.
They're going to teach you rebellion. They're going to teach you to be dishonorable. So you want to test a relationship? Hey, just separate for 6 months.
Right. And then to add to that, us as guys, we sometimes don't realize that the parents of our girlfriend are doing us a favor. Because I remember in relationships that I've been in, let's just say, hey, the parents had strict rules like, hey, no going out after 10, you can't be by yourself, you can't do this. At the time, I was like, dude, like, what the heck, man? Like, we can't do anything. Like how can we have this relationship? But now looking at it back, now it's like, no, like, thank you, parents that are quote unquote strict with your kids, because you're saving your kids for the right person. So don't think that you're doing anything bad with your kids. Save your kids because they don't understand. We don't know the dangers of being alone with somebody until we're alone with somebody. We think that we're good until nobody's around. we're in the car or we're in the room or we're somebody, and now we get tested in an area that we have no idea or no experience in.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just gonna say, and save yourself for the right person too, because everyone you can talk to that meets their spouse, they can tell you that they wish they would have saved themselves.
They regret
for that
it.
person. Yeah, they regret it. And
I gave 5 years of my life to this guy, 10 years of my life to this guy, and now I met you. You deserve everything from me, and now you feel like you
getting the leftovers.
But not necessarily the
Too much?
leftovers, but you held something back. You didn't give him something
Right.
that you wish that you would have given him. And that is like the biggest detriment in women, because I have heard this all the time, and I'm like, man, I wish that I would have been a virgin when I met my husband, but I gave it to somebody that didn't even care about me. I gave it to somebody that is no longer in my life, that is no longer part of anything that I'm doing today. But now this wonderful man is here, and I couldn't give this to him. And this is something that women just carry with them. So I'm telling you, the authority of the girl is your best friend, because he's protecting her for the husband. He's not protecting her for the boyfriend. So the reason I'm strict with my daughter is because I want to make sure that my daughter is in right standing for her husband, not for her boyfriend. I don't care about the boyfriend. The boyfriend means nothing to me. I want to make sure that when the husband shows up, I'm going to give the husband something good, something that he's going to be proud of, and something that he's not going to come back and say, but you. But when I met you.
And as a man too, I mean, I think it's important, because once you enter a relationship, let's say with your wife, and you've been with 20 other different women, then your mind plays this tricks on you in the sense that you're trying to recreate experiences or things that you had with other people with your wife, when that's not the type of relationship that you have.
That's why I would advise people even to stop watching The Bachelorette. You know, that is such an emotional, destructive show for women. It creates fantasies that are not real. It's not real world stuff. And it teaches women that it's okay to be kissing this one and that one and that one, and we gotta try everything, and we have to be able to sleep around so that until we find our perfect match. No, you don't. That is sexual immorality that is being passed on as virtuous, as the culture or the norm. I would say no. You know what? How good would it be if you were to meet your husband and your husband was the first one that you kissed? Right. The first time that you experienced anything, it was with your husband. There is no comparison. You can't compare him to anything. And he's not like Jane, Jack, or Joe. You know, and she's not like Jill, like Jennifer, or whoever. You know, I'm not in bed with you thinking of her. I'm not in bed with him thinking about somebody else. No, there is no comparison. The only thing I can think about when I'm going into intimacy is about this person, because he's the only one that I've been with. I don't have a mind to think about anybody else. But nowadays, it's like, John was better.
Right.
Peter kissed me better. You know, maybe he's nice. I like him. I know he can make me happy, but I just can't stop thinking of John.
I wish you did it like her.
Everything. So, you know, it's crazy. But anyway, you know what? Time is always our enemy. You know, when we talk about this type of topic, it's complicated. It's not enough time. An hour is not enough time to be able to talk about so many experiences, so many things. But at the end of the day, what we really want to, do here is be able to open the door open, or knock the door open, or tear it down, so that we can be able to just have these conversations freely and be able to come into church and just talk about, hey, sex is going to happen, but let's find out when it's going to happen. It's going to happen in its season, at its right time, at the fullness of time, when I get married to the right person, because sex was created by God. Sex is not immoral. Sex is holy. So having sex is the most wonderful thing in the world if you're under authority, but it's immoral if you're outside authority. So we got to bring bring everything back around and be able to bring everything back into order. So, like I said, time is our enemy. Let's just say goodbye, and we'll probably have another conversation on this because I know a lot of people still want to hear more about it.
Okay, well, my last words, guys, is if your relationship is not under authority, get under authority. And once it's under authority, take that 6-month break, develop your singleness, take that test, and if it stands the test, cool. And if it doesn't, it'll be the best decision you make.
Yeah, I just want to say I hope, if this blesses your life, and like he said, that we're able to kick that door and have this kind of conversations more often. And if you're in a relationship where you question things, voice them out. You need to talk about it, because otherwise you're going to encounter yourself you're going to put yourself in a really bad situation.
Find your authority.
Yes.
Sometimes your pastor is not your authority, so you can't go crying to your pastor all the time. Find your authority. And if you don't even know what an authority is, then come to House 633. We'll teach you what that is. Yeah. So we'll end it there. If you guys wanted to partner with us, if this was a blessing, go ahead and give us a like. Go ahead and share so that we can get this message to more people out there. Also, we want to expand the kingdom of God. So we're asking people that want to partner with us and want to sow a seed to us. You can do it through Zelle at honorseed@house633.com. So till next time, to the King.
To the King.